It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. And now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back, and we are joined on our newsmaker line right now by our very good friend, former Department of Justice official, Harvard undergrad, Georgetown Law School, a great legal mind, great legal expert, Jeff Clark. Welcome, Jeff.
Hi, Mike. It's good to be here.
I think I saw that you were up in Philadelphia over the weekend. Is that right?
That's correct. I went out for an event, Italian Americans for Trump in Philadelphia, which is my hometown, even though I'm not an Italian. But for yesterday, I was an honorary Italian, Mike.
With the Wise Guys? Is that like a cable or operation, or is it a YouTube?
That's a Newsmax show.
And the Wise Guys.
The Wise Guys, yeah. They usually operate in the New York area, but they came down to Philadelphia on the Eastern Seaboard for this event.
And what was the crowd like there?
It was pretty good. You know, there were Italians. There was, it shows changes in South Philadelphia across the street from the Italian cigar shop where the host was kind enough to provide free pasta, meatballs, etc. There was a Nicaraguan store, and I think some of the Nicaraguans came out too. So, it was a good day. It was good weather, and we had George Stephanopoulos and his wife come out, the hosts of the Wise Guys program, and some other figures in kind of MAGA world.
George Stephanopoulos?
Sorry, Stephanopoulos, Papadopoulos.
Yes.
Excuse me. I that's a very bad confusion on my part.
Well, that's all right. Papadopoulos. That sounds good. By the way.
Yeah, he's very good, and he spoke, and his wife, who's an Italian native, actually spoke about fighting tyranny while George was under attack through the lawfare.
So the other pal on the War Room, who was up there, Jack Posobiec, went to a Philadelphia Eagles game. He like you's from the Philadelphia area. He wore a MAGA hat, and let's just say hilarity ensued thereafter, right?
I haven't seen that. He was actually supposed to come to the event, but he didn't come. So you're giving me the news that he bagged us to go to the Eagles game.
He was at the Eagles game, and apparently there was some kind of, I don't know, some kind of something happened, and for a while he wasn't on the field, and then they got in his seat, but then he got back in the seat, and the Eagles won, so he was happy. Okay, so the next 24, 36, 48 hours, what do you expect to see on Election Day, on election night, Jeff Clark?
Well, look, I'm watching for any indications of the same kinds of fraud plays that they ran in 2020, namely shenanigans with mail-in voting, trying to extend the deadlines for that, getting in ballots that aren't postmarked, ballots that they don't do signature verification on, attempts to, try to find some way to pervert the system at the last minute, shut down polling places early, especially in red areas, those kinds of things. And then, I think we have to be geared up to litigate about those and recognize, that it was hard to convince judges in 2020 to intervene. And I think that there was a different climate then than there is now. I think that the COVID pall hung over everyone. But now I think that people realize that there's just a massive wave for President Trump. And I think that that's potentially going to cause, different results in the courts because, we like to think that judges are immune to politics, but they do bow to it, especially in election contests, if nowhere else. And I think the mood is very different in the country at this point. And we're already seeing, right, that Fulton County and a handful of other counties in Georgia was trying to extend their early voting, and that was shut down. And then in Pennsylvania, there were some counties where you could tell that you're talking about Trump voters, and they were trying to understaff polling places for their drop-off mail-in ballot situation. And when you go into the polling place, you kind of fill out your ballot there and leave it. It's not called early voting, but it's kind of equivalent to early voting. And they were, trying to close at 1:30 p.m. and send people who'd been in line for hours home, and eventually that got stopped by the courts. So they're examples of the climate changing.
Now, you mentioned some would-be skullduggery down in Fulton County, Georgia. That's the Atlanta area. Fulton County is Atlanta, basically. I thought that there was a big battle going on there, and have we stopped their efforts at this skullduggery?
Well, I think they have multiple skullduggeries, and I think that we stopped one of them, but I don't think that we halted one of them. But I think that there are probably some ballots that snuck into that process that it might be difficult to pull out of difficult or impossible to pull out of the process. So it's always good to stem the bleeding, but it would have been better if it had never happened in the first place. And,
what about this story in Michigan where a Chinese national illegally voted in Michigan, had some kind of attack of conscience, went back and said, I want my ballot back. That act is what caught him. He's going to be prosecuted, and yet his vote is still going to count. Your thoughts on that, Jeff Clark?
Well, I mean, part of that, Mike, I think, is the idea that we have anonymous balloting, right? And so once kind of the vote is merged into the mass of the votes, it's hard to pull it out. But while you could ask him, it seems to me, who he voted for to voluntarily disclose that. Right, not to force him to disclose it. I don't think there could be a court order.
Voluntarily sign an affidavit, right?
Yeah, you could voluntarily sign an affidavit. But look, actually now as I think that through, as I start to answer the question, Mike, I mean, what people are going to say if you try to do that is that because he's under potential prosecution, nothing he does will be considered voluntary. So it's kind of hard to undo that one, but. If you can show that there are structural problems, and then you could have courts, and sometimes they've done this, like do statistical estimates of kind of what, votes you need to kind of disregard that were issued, put in violation of the system. But, here I guess it's just important that he's been caught. And what's most important structurally is the fact that Virginia did a sweep of its rolls to take out illegal aliens, and the district court tried to block that, and then the Fourth Circuit affirmed the blockage of it, and it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court put a hold on it, which means that Virginia could take these people off the rolls, which is just basic common sense, Mike. We can't have illegal aliens voting in our elections. It's unlawful.
Last question for you, Jeff. Polls around the country, except for in Hawaii and Alaska, will be closed by, I think, about 10 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, Tuesday, November 5th. What date and time will Donald Trump be declared the victor of this presidential election?
I sure hope that it is by 10, 11 p.m. tomorrow night. And given some of the polling and the fact that the Republicans have decided to get early voting in this time, unlike prior approaches, I think we need to have same-day voting with paper ballots, but we're not going to be able to get that, and obviously couldn't get that for this election. So Republicans did the second-best solution, which is to start actually doing the early voting. And I think that the indications are that President Trump could win a big enough victory to have it be called on tomorrow night. And then I would predict that what we're going to be dealing with is a massive election coming from the Democrat side, with amnesia about the fact that President Trump was bringing litigation in 2020 to try to undo that, plus, skullduggery and shenanigans going all the way up to January 6th on 2025.
I think you're probably right in that regard. Jeff Clark, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
All right. Up next, we've got from here in Tennessee, State Representative Scott Cepicky. Back after this.
Hi folks, John Fredericks here for Freedom Alliance. Veterans are still struggling with the wounds of war. They came home with injuries that changed them forever. The flag-burning troublemakers in our streets remind me how fortunate we are to have patriots who served and fought, sacrificed, and never complained. We need to support them through organizations like the Freedom Alliance. It's Military Appreciation Month and time to support those who serve. Freedom Alliance is caring for combat veterans and military families. Combat veterans fought in the worst, most dangerous places on earth. Freedom Alliance takes them to nature's most relaxing locations so they can heal. Freedom Alliance gives injured troops mortgage-free homes, new cars, and all-terrain wheelchairs. For wounded vets, there's nothing like the stability of your own home, the reinsurance of a reliable vehicle, or the independence of a wheelchair that navigates snow, ice, beach, pasture, or most any terrain. Let's fight for those who fought for us. Go to freedomalliance.org/Godzilla and make a monthly gift that will improve the life of a military hero. That's freedomalliance.org/Godzilla. Make a contribution today.
If you're like me, most moms find it difficult to prioritize self-care. Hi, it's Colleen, Program Director at the John Fredericks Media Network. With the demands of programming 13 radio stations, it's easy to forget about the things I should do for myself daily. And that's why I started with our company's Women's Challenge with Native Path Collagen Peptides. It's affordable and convenient care in just one scoop a day. There are so many incredible health benefits like bone and joint support, metabolism booster, and hair, skin, and nail improvement. I like to take a moment each day to prioritize myself and indulge in the health-boosting benefits of Native Path Collagen Peptides. I love mixing it up with all the different smoothie recipes, too. Learn more about Native Path Collagen Peptides and read 7 important reasons why you should be taking collagen peptides at getnativepath.com/Godzilla. Prioritize your self-care with Native Path Collagen Peptides. Try it risk-free for as low as $21 today and get free shipping at getnativepath.com/Godzilla.
Target.com. Target.com is an online e-commerce tire retailer. We are here to serve the American public with the best possible customer service, the best pricing, and we make it extremely easy. We have many name brands and a lot of low-cost tires. The price is right, and it's easy. You go online to Target.com, Tireget.com, Target.com. You go there, you put your zip code in, all the inventory displays right in front of you. You can call in for help if you want to. We'll help you get the tire that you need. But we will take the tires you buy and at no extra charge deliver them to the dealer right by your house where they will be installed at the market price. It's easy. The best price, the best service. Great people to deal with. Thank you for going to Target.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. We are joined on our newsmaker line right now by our very good friend, State Representative Scott Sapicki, who represents a good portion of Murray County here in Middle Tennessee. Welcome, Scott.
Michael, how in the world are you doing today in this pre-election day?
Yeah, so you're on the ballot, and
Yes.
this would be what, your third term coming up?
Fourth term.
Fourth term
coming up.
Fourth term coming up. What's it like as a political candidate the day before election? How do you spend your time?
You are talking to me in my truck right now as I go from polling place to polling place, setting out my signs for the people when they come on election day. And then it's making last-minute phone calls to people who haven't voted yet, making sure that, I get in front of them and I have their support in the upcoming election. And it looks extremely very good for us here in Murray County that I will be elected to a fourth term.
So now you're in your truck, and how many polling place signs do you have in the back of the truck right now?
Oh, well, I put 3 up at each polling place. I've got about 50 signs in my truck.
So how many polling places are in your district?
They're in my district. I have 16 polling places that I have to put signs up at.
Okay, so 16 times 3 equals 48. So so the logistics of this become quite a problem. You don't have a crew of worker bees that you can just say, "Hey, you guys go and do that." You do it yourself, right?
No, I do it myself because this is one of the things that I enjoy doing is getting out and talking to people. I see a lot of people while I'm up putting up signs, and they they drive by and they give you a honk or they give you a wave and the thumbs up and stuff like that. Occasionally, you get the number one salute once in a while, but it's okay.
What are you telling me? Not everyone likes Scott Sapicki? I'm shocked.
No, you know what? Shocking to believe. Yes, you are correct.
Well, do way back in my misbegotten youth, when I was a Democrat, back in 1980, I managed a congressional campaign for an incumbent Democrat in upstate New York. And he ended up winning narrowly that time. It was the Reagan landslide. And by the way, that election is what turned me into a Republican. Right?
Really?
Yeah. I saw what went on behind the scenes, and I didn't like it. So, but one of the things that this fellow did, his name was Stanley Lundeen. He had been the mayor of Jamestown, New York, and then he won a special election in '76, served a number of years, and then was Mario Cuomo's lieutenant governor for a couple terms. But one of the things he said that he did is he always wrote two speeches on the day before the election. Mm-hmm. One was a concession speech, and the other was a victory speech. And I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yes.
How many speeches do you write?
One.
Because it's highly likely you're going to win, right?
Well, my whole life has been about winning, from athletics to politics to marrying my wife and my kids. Everything I do is based on the premise of we are doing everything we can to win. And if you lose, and I've had to do one of those speeches when I ran for Murray County Mayor in 2014, and it was hard. It was hard to talk to people about losing. But hey, you know what? In Tennessee, we're all about winning. We're going to keep winning, and hopefully, God willing, President Trump's going to win, and then we're going to start to take our country back and move it back in a positive direction.
Do you have a sense on the ground?
He wins big.
That's what your feeling is?
I've got friends. I played football up at the University of Wisconsin, and I've talked to some of my football buddies up there, and they're like, Scott, it is incredible the turnout in the rural and suburban areas and the lack of turnout in like Madison, Milwaukee, and St. Paul.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I talked to some friends of mine. We just got back from a football visit for my son to Oklahoma State, and it's been the same thing, just massive turnout of people that are just fed up with where our country's heading. And I'll give you an example real quick, if you don't mind. I took my son to I don't mind saying it. I took my son to Chick-fil-A. Now, if you've seen my son, he's a football player. He's 6'6", 300 pounds as a junior. My bill for him at Chick-fil-A was $27.
Mm-hmm.
That's one kid. We know the price of milk. We know the price of groceries. We know the price of food. We know the price of eating out. We know the price of fuel. And it wasn't like that under President Trump. And by the way, when President Trump was there, we weren't in these wars starting up all over the world. And Mr. Putin and Kim Jong Un and Xi, they all knew that they had to stay in their lane. And we need to get back to that in this country to keep our kids out of a foreign war.
So election day tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Then the following, you will probably have results tomorrow night in your race, right?
Oh yeah, and mine will probably be called. I hope it's called in early voting.
Got it. As soon as the early voting comes in, when polls close at 7 p.m. tomorrow, right?
That's correct. Yeah, early voting will probably be out shortly after that.
So then you've got to spend the next day. You got to go back around and pick up those 50 signs you're putting up today, right?
Yeah, you know what? It's a pretty enjoyable day, if you know what I mean.
I know exactly. Then you're going to be focusing on the next session of the Tennessee General Assembly.
That's correct. The governor's school choice bill, I've heard, will be dropped. It'll be House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1, and it'll be dropped on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, and just so you know, I think one of the things that I want to do is I want to bring in I think that bill is a very important bill to pass. It will be Governor Lee's signature bill, but I'm going to bring in some of the Republicans who oppose it. I'm going to pull a little bit of a Joe Rogan with him, right?
Okay.
I'm just going to have a conversation with them, even though a couple of them who have publicly come out against it. And I've been quite critical of some of them, but I'm going to have a real extended conversation with some of them. And I think I'm going to just press them on. Why are you not going for the single most important bill that can improve education in the state of Tennessee? Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that the thing you have to get past people is the politics of it, Michael. You got to get them on the policy. Tell me why this policy won't be beneficial to students in Tennessee. And there is no argument for that.
Mm-hmm.
Zero.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to benefit. The question is it going to become so cost detrimental like it did in Arizona where it balloons up to almost $1 billion? That's a consideration. How do we put some guardrails on that to make sure that it doesn't become a bank buster in the General Assembly? How do we have some accountability to make sure that these kids that do go to private schools, which were in general, we believe they're going to get a better quality education, how do we track those kids to make sure that they're progressing? And then how do we work with our public schools on creating them to look more like the autonomy and freedom that our private school peers have, to let that reflect more in public school to get better results from our public school. School choice will do one thing for sure, and nobody can argue it, is it'll create smaller classrooms in the public schools, because if kids leave, you're going to have smaller classrooms, which means everybody on that side of the ledger has told members of the General Assembly, if you give us smaller classrooms, we'll get you better results. Well, here you go.
Here's the opportunity. Let me switch gears as we close out.
Sure.
You, a great athlete. You were a punter for the Wisconsin Badgers.
Yep.
You played AAA baseball. Played for the Nashville Sounds. And
Yes,
your sons are big in sports. I think your oldest is now a lineman for University of Memphis. Is that right?
He plays outside linebacker at the University of Memphis.
And your youngest boy is now being recruited by the Wisconsin Badgers and Oklahoma State Cowboys. Is that right?
Tennessee Volunteers and Ole Miss Rebels.
Ah, well, very good. Well, let's see. Of those, Wisconsin is 5-4 this year, which is, I guess, kind of a little bit of disappointing. Didn't they expect a better year?
Well, yes, I did. I did.
But what's going on with the Oklahoma State Cowboys? They're 0-6 in Big 12. Coach Mike Gundy's been there 20 years. They're 3-6 overall. Isn't this like the worst year they've ever had?
Yeah, it's been very disappointing for them. They had great expectations. I think they had something like 19 seniors that they really – well, remember last year they were 11-1. And so they were expecting great things this year. And as you know in football, you got to get the breaks, and the breaks have always gone against them, and it's been a tough year. I mean, Tennessee, it looks like the breaks are bouncing their way this year.
Yeah, and I think the NIL has really changed college sports, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, it's now about the money. It's never. I mean, I'm a Badger. You know, I'm a Wisconsin Badger forever because that's where I went to school, and I spent all 5 years there going to school. And now you see these kids that are transferring every year just looking for the next paycheck.
Well, it's a free market economy. I think. I think. Look, I think the Supreme Court was right in enabling name, image, and likeness payments for the kids. A lot of college teams and coaches are having a difficult time understanding how to handle that new reality. That's why I think Nick Saban retired and others as well. However, on the plus side, Scott, for young athletes, this represents a huge economic opportunity for them.
Well, it's the worst thing for the sport, but the best thing for the athletes.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way of putting it. Yeah, because the sport doesn't have the continuity of building a team of guys that are there for 4 years, or girls on the girls' side that are there for 4 years.
Correct.
But the guys, the high-end guys are making tons of bucks. Scott Sapicki, we got 30 seconds.
And hey, I just want to say thank you for having me on here. People of Tennessee, go out and vote. Call people in other states, tell them to go out and vote, and let's see if we can bring this home for President Trump.
Vote, vote, vote. Run through the tape. Thank you, Scott Sapicki. Thanks for joining us. Up next, Speaker of the House here in Tennessee, Cam Sexton joins us from the bus on the road. I think he's in Shelby County.
Americans, my good friends, I've known them for a long time, at D.T. McCall & Sons have the deal of a lifetime for you, and nobody knows deals like I do. That much I can tell you. Nobody knows deals like I do. The lumber yards, they can hit you with hidden charges for up to $200 extra. They'll charge you for cords and hoses and haul-offs. Your money goes all over the place and out of the state, and most importantly, out of your pockets. How do they get away with that? I don't know how they do that, but on day one, if you buy from McCall's, we are going to stop the hidden charges as soon as you buy it. D.T. McCall & Sons has locations in Lebanon, Carthage, Lafayette, Cookeville, and Franklin, and they have been family-owned in Middle Tennessee for over 100 years. Head to one of their stores today or check them out at dtmccalls.com. You're going to love it. Believe me. Impersonator
Michael
not endorsed.
Patrick Leahy.
When you look at Kamala Harris, you have to think of her in the context of an upgrade from Joe Biden. As a campaigner, Kamala Harris represents a greater threat to Donald Trump than does Joe Biden.
The Michael Patrick Leahy Show on the John Fredericks Media Network. Weekday mornings, 10 Eastern, 9 Central. You better listen.
I don't think anyone should take this threat lightly. Mutts Cuts Grooming. This summer, never leave pets in vehicles while running errands. Even with windows cracked, 80 degrees can shoot up to 120 degrees, causing heat stroke, dehydration, and even death. So keep pets hydrated, shaded in cool areas, or just leave them at home. That's from Kathy, Candy, and the staff at Mutts Cuts Grooming. The people with warm hearts for those with cold noses. For your pet's grooming needs, call 931-645-9220. That's 931-645-9220 for Mutts Cuts Grooming in Clarksville, Tennessee at 1479 Tiny Town Road.
Hey there, this is Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store. As a proud sponsor of this show, you may have heard Michael Patrick Leahy mention us a few times over the past 4 years. But today, it's me on the radio telling you how pleased we are to be associated with Michael Patrick Leahy and his dedication to the highest levels of professional journalism. Michael Patrick Leahy has been threatened with jail time in bringing the true facts about that Nashville Covenant shooting to his listening audience. Michael Patrick Leahy, you keep doing what you're doing, and we here at the Glock Store will keep sponsoring your show for the good of Nashville and the entire country. And I'm personally inviting all of your listeners to come visit and shoot at the Glock Store. It's where Michael Patrick Leahy learned to shoot a gun for the first time and where he bought his own personal Glock 19. I'm Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store here in Nashville, just minutes from the airports, worth the drive from anywhere, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy and the Tennessee Star Report.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
We are joined on our newsmaker line right now by the man from Crossville, the Tennessee Speaker of the House of Representatives, Cam Sexton. Welcome, Speaker Sexton.
Hey, thanks for having me on today.
So I understand you're on the Freedom Bus, the bus tour that's going around the state. We had the chairman of the Republican Party, Scott Golden, on a little earlier in the program. My question for you is, are you on the chili dog and milkshake diet as Scott Golden is?
I'm not so sure about the chili, but definitely had a few milkshakes, yes, sir.
So how long have you been on the tour, and what kind of reaction have you seen?
So we started 2 weeks ago. We went Monday through Saturday, and last week Monday through Friday, and we're finishing up today with 3 stops. We're starting in Ripley, Tennessee, and then we're going to end in Shelby County, Memphis, Tennessee, and so I think we'll have 43 counties and close to 50 stops when we're finally done today.
Doesn't that just kind of wear you out being on the bus that long?
No, I mean, it can be. I mean, you get a little drained. I mean, some days you have 5 to 6 stops, and those are long days. And the day you go 12, 15 hours a day, depending on what we have. And but I would just tell you that the crowds that are out, it's energizing. I mean, we were in Lake County that has a population of around 5,000 people. We had 45 or 50 show up, and that's been the smallest crowd that we've had. It was a great crowd for Lake County. And then we've had crowds in Blount County over 200, in Smith or DeKalb County over 180, and Cumberland County over 300. And most every crowd that we've had is somewhere between 75 to 100 people, and it's actually been really nice to see so many people enthused in Tennessee to go out and vote Republican, vote for Trump, and support us in this state.
Now, you have a supermajority in the House of Representatives. What is it? It's 75-24? Do I have that right? 75-24. How many seats would you say are at risk? How many seats do you think in the House you could possibly gain this cycle?
That's a good question. I wouldn't call it at risk. I would call it in play. In play could mean, it's you're up by 4 or 5 points or down a couple of points. I think as far as what our incumbents are, I think the Democrats would say here that 2 seats are in play. I think with the Democrats, we have up to 3 of their seats in play. So, out of 99 seats, it comes down to 5. We'll still maintain our supermajority in Tennessee after this election. We could come back right at 75. We could come in a little bit below, or we could come up around 77, 78. So it'll be interesting to see over the next 24, 32 hours how it plays out.
Yeah, and it's in a good place to be, right? To have a supermajority where you're either going to gain a few or lose a few at best or at worst. Not a lot of state legislatures or houses of representatives, lower houses in any state are in that kind of situation. And of course, you've got the supermajority in the state Senate, which I don't believe is at risk either. That gives you a terrific opportunity to set the agenda when the Tennessee General Assembly reconvenes in January. What do you see as the top issue that you'll be focused on?
Well, look, I know at every stop we talk about different freedoms as far as how the Republicans look at it, whether it's economic freedom, healthcare freedom, personal freedom, Second Amendment freedom, education freedom, religious freedom, freedom from crime. Look, we're out talking about the issues that Tennesseans care about. You're going to look at education freedom next year. Obviously, the school choice is a big one. Freedom to be able to live your life without being a victim of a crime is another big issue out there. We're going to continue to keep working at that. And then also healthcare freedom, allowing you to be in charge of your healthcare plans and stuff, you and your physician, without the insurance companies trying to dictate everything that you want to do. So, look, we think we have the winning message, and we think we've been doing things right in Tennessee, and I think that shows by the amount of people who are becoming Republicans and voting Republicans and maintaining their supermajorities.
When you talk to people that come to these rallies and these events on the Freedom Tour, do you get that the interest level is mostly at the national level, the state level, or the local level?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with Trump-Vance in Tennessee being a very red state. But, if you think about it, when we have stops throughout the day, we start at 8 a.m. We have stops all the way up until about 5 p.m. And whether it's at 10:30 in the morning or whether it's at 2:30 in the afternoon or anywhere in between, we're drawing crowds. And I think people are coming out to show their support for the Trump-Vance ticket, obviously, for the bus tour. But also there's a lot of people, when you talk to them, are very thankful about how our state is leading, how our state is protecting them. And you have a lot of people saying that they moved here. There's a lot of people we have met over the last 2.5 weeks who've told us they moved to Tennessee because Tennessee, America was 20 to 30 years ago with the freedom and liberty that they're looking for. And so I think Tennessee is on the map as a place that conservatives and Republicans want to move to. And that's what we've seen throughout this tour.
When you talk to them, what states of origin do you hear most often? And
a lot of times you hear people, California is one on top. You hear some from Washington. You hear Illinois. You hear a lot of New York. You hear people from very blue states who said, I just can't take it anymore. I cannot take what they're doing to me as far as the economy, increasing my taxes, making it harder. I can't continue to live in a state that wants to slap criminals on the wrist and not protect victims. They just had enough, and they were looking for something else. And, a lot of times they were choosing between Tennessee, Texas, and Florida, and it looks like a lot of people are choosing Tennessee.
And for good reason. It's the most beautiful state in the country. It's the best state in the country, and the people are the nicest in the country, and we've got the best state government. But that's just me. Now, you were mentioning a couple states where I lived. I lived in California and went to graduate school there, got out as soon as I could, moved here to Tennessee in 1991. But I was born and raised in upstate New York, And what's interesting to me is, I don't know, have you followed the Peanut the Squirrel debacle?
Yes, a little bit. I saw a little bit of it last night. Yes.
Yeah, so this is the kind of thing that New York State Democrat bureaucrats might do. That would never happen in the state of Tennessee. I mean, a neighbor complains because the guy had a pet squirrel that good old Peanut, and the neighbor complains. They send in like 10 armed officers, and they have a search warrant, and they search his house for 5 hours looking for, wait for it, a squirrel and a raccoon, and somehow the squirrel and the raccoon then end up being euthanized and tested for rabies. That would never happen in the state of Tennessee.
No, it wouldn't. But here's the thing that's fascinating by that, too. If you look in these states, what they're doing to give all this free money to illegal immigrants in their cities, putting them up, protecting them, what they're doing to criminals or what they're not doing to criminals and holding them accountable. You see crime rates running through the roof. You see all these crimes in New York on the subway and everywhere else. You see everything that they're not doing to protect society, and their biggest concern is a squirrel, right? It's
crazy.
You kind of look at it and you just like, it's no wonder people are wanting to move out of those states.
And, because growing up in upstate New York, the topography of upstate New York, very similar to Middle Tennessee, kind of rolling hills, beautiful country, lakes, rivers. It's physically beautiful, particularly in the summer in upstate New York. But, I notice the kind of freedom and liberty that I had growing up there in the 60s and 70s, that's not there anymore. In fact, look at, I don't know if you saw what the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, said. She's really a piece of work. She went and said, well, anybody who votes Republican is anti-American.
Right.
How can anybody live in a state like that?
Well, here's the thing is what you have on one hand, you have them probably 5 sentences before talking about how they want to unite the country and we need to work together. And then 5 sentences later, they come back and say, Trump's evil. I don't know how you could support somebody like that if you're anti-America. And so the media is sitting there and they report the last half and they don't ever call them out for their hypocrisy. And so, you can't have it both ways. And I think what people are saying is, I don't even call it the Democrat Party anymore, because the Democrat Party of an old, especially the Southern Democrats, would have never agreed with what they're doing today. And I think that's why we're being successful. I call it the new Democrat Party when I'm out here campaigning, because I don't want to offend the Southern Democrats, because they would be offended by
I think you're exactly right.
Party is. So, and then the Southern Democrats align with a lot of Republican values. And so now they're supporting Republicans in the state of Tennessee. And I think that's what you're going to see on Election Day, on Tuesday, is that new Democrat Party is so far out of pace with what America is and what the public wants. I think they're going to see a huge problem. And I don't think people are going to poll and tell them exactly what they want to hear, because, they don't want to share. They don't trust the polls anymore. They don't trust the people who are polling. And so they don't want to give out their information. And that's why it's becoming extremely hard to poll and get good numbers. The best poll is what's going to happen in the ballot box on Tuesday, and we'll see what happens.
So election night, tomorrow night, where will you be watching the results come in?
Well, I'll be at home in Crossville, and so I'll be there. I'll do my normal radio tour and work the polls and do what I always do on Election Day. I'm looking forward to having a good night. I'm looking forward for our house in Tennessee to have a good night, and for Trump. And, I think it's important to do that. Look, you were talking about the amount of people moving in Tennessee. So when we did the bus stop in Crossville, I asked, we had over 300 people there, and I said, how many of you have moved into the state in the last couple of years? And I'm not kidding you, when 70% of the people raised their hands, 70%. And those were all people at a Republican rally. I don't think that's being taken into account in a lot of these races, and we'll see what happens on Tuesday.
Yeah, the levels of enthusiasm are very, very high. And, I am, like you, I think I'm very optimistic about how this is going to turn out. We've all seen how in some of these other states that don't have the same level of election integrity, and don't have a great Secretary of State like we have here in Trey Hargett, don't have fair and honest court systems to the level that we have here in Tennessee, we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. But even then, I think the levels of enthusiasm are so high that I think it's going to be a very good day for Republicans, not only at statewide offices and for the Tennessee General Assembly, but also on the national ticket. Final thoughts?
Yeah.
Speaker of the House, Cam Sexton.
No, I agree with you. Look, I mean, if you want to show the hypocrisy of the New Democrat Party, they don't believe in photo ID. They don't believe in deadlines. They don't believe that when you get an absentee ballot, you have to have it back by a certain day. If you don't sign it, that's okay. You even have one state that said, well, if you vote absentee and you don't know if your vote's going to be counted, well, you should go vote on election day. Well, how does that work? And so let's just have a straight up and down vote. Let's just do it correctly. And in Tennessee, that's why we're the number one election integrity in the country. And we do it right. And so we're looking forward to a great election here.
Speaker of the House, Cam Sexton, the man from Crossville. Speaker Sexton, thanks so much for joining us today, and good luck with those milkshakes on the tour tonight.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you.
All right. When we come back, folks, it's that time of day. It'll be time for News Potpourri. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.
CEO of Soul Tea, a supplement to help you have a healthier heart and stronger cardiovascular system. At Soul Tea, we regularly get emails from our customers telling us how Soul Tea has helped them. Like this one from Kelly. Hello, I'm 58 years old and have had high cholesterol for years. I wanted to stay away from prescription drugs. My husband and I have been using Soul Tea for about 13 months. My results have been amazing. My cholesterol levels went from 291 to 129. I am so impressed with Soul Tea and want to thank you. Now, in my own case, my bad cholesterol dropped from 130 to 89, and that was 20 years ago. I'm 75 years old and I take 0 prescription drugs. To get a great deal on Soul Tea, please go to GodzillaHeart.com, and when you check out, use the code Godzilla to get our best deal, which is 50% off your first shipment and then 3 bottles for the price of 2 thereafter. You don't have to live with a broken heart.
Do you suffer from
Try
declining
Soul
bone
Tea
and
today.
joint health? Hi, it's Tina with the John Fredericks Media Network. And when I heard about our company's Women's Challenge, I jumped on the opportunity to test this amazing supplement that's already restoring my bone density, soothing my joint pain, and helping me regain lost mobility. I've experienced so many benefits in such a short time with Native Path Collagen Peptides because they support my bones and joints, boost my metabolism, and unleash the most radiant skin and hair since my 20s. In just 2 weeks, my knee stiffness is gone, and I'm already hitting the gym more aggressively. And I get so many compliments on my glowy skin and shiny hair. Native Path Collagen Peptides are so easy to take. They're tasteless, odorless, and mix great with my morning coffee. Read thousands of 5-star reviews at getnativepath.com/Godzilla. Level up your self-care with Native Path Collagen Peptides. Try it risk-free for as low as $21 today. And get free shipping at getnativepath.com/Godzilla.
In 2008, the amount of concentrated time people could spend on a task without becoming distracted was 12 seconds. 5 years later, it was only 8 seconds, 1 second less than a goldfish. If you're often distracted or have trouble recalling information, you're likely to fall behind in the demanding, fast-paced 21st century. In other words, brain performance is more critical now than ever. Boost your brain power with Healthy Cells Focus Plus Recall. Science-backed nootropics to help you sharpen focus, concentrate longer, enhance recall, improve mental speed, learn rapidly, and be more alert. It's a pill-free brain supplement made with maximum absorption ingestible gel technology, designed to feed your brain at the cellular level. Take it for a test drive. Go to healthycell.com and use code GODZILLA for 20% off your first order of Focus Plus Recall. That's HealthyCell.com. Code GODZILLA for 20% off.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Folks, it's that time of day again. It's time for News Potpourri. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, News Potpourri. This is the portion of the program where we talk about those stories that are of note, don't necessarily merit a full segment, and may have a touch of irony. Well, we'll start off with kind of a sad story. Quincy Jones has passed away, 91 years old, the great musical producer who worked with all sorts of musical talents, Michael Jackson, Frank Sinatra. 91, that's a full life. Those of you of a certain age may recall that one of his wives was the third member of the Mod Squad, Peggy Lipton. Remember that? It's 1960s. I see Patrick, our producer, is looking quizzically at me. He wasn't even around, I think, then in the 1960s. But it was the cool show. Clarence Williams III, I forget the other guy who was the star, and then Peggy Lipton, who was, very pretty, very, very, very former model. Anyway, she ended up marrying Quincy Jones. They had a couple kids. Ended up divorced. She passed away a bit ago, but Quincy Jones has passed away at the age of 91. A great, great musical talent. In Detroit, this is where we get a little bit of irony. Kamala Harris went to a church in Detroit and said electing her is part of a, quote, divine plan to heal division. Give me a break. If there's anything providential in this election, it was Donald Trump turning his head at the last minute, July 13th, in Butler, Pennsylvania, and an assassin's bullet just clipped his ear. That was providential. There's nothing providential about Kamala Harris whatsoever. Here's another one, back to Kamala Harris. And you see this all play out. I saw a little bit of this late last night. So the story is, on Saturday, Kamala Harris was on a plane flying towards Michigan and was going to do an event. And apparently somebody from Saturday Night Live, an NBC program, called her up. I don't know if it was Lorne Michaels, who, by the way, I guess he's an American citizen born in Canada. I've generally liked Lorne Michaels, but in this instance, NBC clearly demonstrating that they're trying to influence the election. By the way, that's not allowed under their licensing agreement with the Federal Communication Commission. So they went ahead and Lorne Michaels called her up and said, hey, you want to come on Saturday Night Live tonight? And she said, sure. So they turned the plane around, according to the stories, landed in New York. She went in, apparently did like 3 hours to rehearse a 90-second skit, which was pretty awful, pretty cringeworthy. And then she got on a plane and left. Well, that's a violation of the Federal Communications Commission rules on this, allowing equal time. Somebody, and I don't know how this all came out, right? Because was it like an impromptu thing that Lorne Michaels and Saturday Night Live did? Or was it something that the leading executives at NBC were told of before they did it? It's hard to say. But they thought they were going to be able to get away with it, but they didn't. And they were forced by public outcry and by the member of the Federal Communication Commission, Brendan Carr, called them out on it. And so they were forced to put a notice out that, oh yeah, we gave her time, and as a result, they were forced to do a 60-second ad of Donald Trump, which aired during a NASCAR event yesterday and during the NFL coverage of football. Except I don't think it was a 60-second spot. And I watched it, but it came after the game. I mean, you don't want when are you going to get a maximum audience on that? Well, you're going to get a maximum audience on that during kind of like, first quarter, second quarter, right? That's when you get, or third or fourth quarter, but not when the game is, the outcome is known. And it was a pretty good spot, but it was 60 seconds. And you look at it and say, well, is that equal time? He really should have gotten a Saturday Night Live clip. Now they look and say that, well, there are only 5 million people that watch Saturday Night Live, 20 million people watch Sunday Night Football, except typically what you find is if there's a clip that runs on Saturday Night Live, you're going to see, that'll run and run and run all around, basically, it'll run all around the internet. So that's kind of what happened. Politico. Oh, my gosh. Oh, let me just say, German-owned Politico, right? German-owned Politico. They've got one of these, supposedly a news story. And we've seen more and more of these last 3 days where all the regime media is coming out, just purely propagandist. I didn't have time to play this clip, but Joe Scarborough on Morning Joe, oh my goodness. He was, this morning, just ridiculous. But the story is, and it's by David Siders, who is was previously a national political correspondent at Politico, and a senior writer for, wait for it, the Sacramento Bee. It's a McClatchy newspaper. Headline, is there a future for MAGA after Trump? Trump could be reelected, but what happens to his movement after that? The tailgate was aimed at boosting a protege, but it was Donald Trump whose name and image was plastered everywhere on the banner hung from Republicans' tables outside Arizona State University football game. They might have turned out to support protege Kerry Lake, but it was his movement, Trump's, the tailgaters were starting to worry about. Are you kidding me? What a moron. No, not worried about it. Actually, guy David Sider. David, buddy, listen to me. We're looking at 12 years. We're looking at 4 years of Trump, followed by 8 years of J.D. Vance. That's 12 years of the constitutional conservative populist movement on top. And on that note, that is our program for today. Stay tuned tomorrow. It'll be election day. I'll be back then. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy. See you at 9 o'clock Central Time tomorrow, right here on 760 AM WENO, 730 AM KQPN, and all across the John Fredericks Radio Network. This is Michael Patrick Leahy. I want to say a word about my good friend Dustin Damon. Dustin is the best handyman in Middle Tennessee. Call Dustin today at 724-683-4400. That's 724-683-4400 if you have a job around the house that you just haven't gotten around to. If you're busy like me, you just may not have the time to fix that broken mailbox, repair the back porch, or get that old light fixture back to working properly. Do what I did. Call Dustin Damon today at 724-683-4400, and he will bring his truck and tools to your house and get that job done lickety-split. Dustin's main service area is Williamson County and the southern part of Davidson County. So call Dustin Damon, the best handyman in Middle Tennessee today, at 724-683-4400. Tell him you heard about him on the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. The Chief Team reminds listeners here that more and more veterans will be returning home over the next few years, and many are local. These heroes have elite military training and valuable professional skills, but they also need jobs too. That's why the Chief Team is encouraging all local businesses. Let's make it the year we hire smart and hire veterans. That's from the Chief Team, where they say service isn't just a courtesy, it's a commitment. For more information, call 931-444-3572. That's 931-444-3572 for the Chief Team in Clarksville.
The Black preaching tradition is deeply connected to gospel music.
PBS presents a new series hosted by Henry Louis Gates Jr., Gospel.
Our singers preach and our preachers sing.
Gospel is a prayer. It is our heart's cry to God in lyrics and song.
You feel it deep down in your soul.
Gospel. Streaming now on the PBS app.